going?
Give me like 2 seconds, I'm just gonna pull up the rubric on my laptop. Sorry.
Is it recording?
Yeah.
Do I need to go over there if I'm talking?
Yeah, it doesn't really get the,
Okay.
Yeah, we'll just, when it comes up to be your time, just bring your laptop over here and we can just swap for like the changing. Well, there's a clicker.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is there not a clicker?
No, that's just a remote.
yeah, just.
Is there a clicker?
We got the
I
podium.
don't know.
Where is the?
That's fine, we'll just, I can just
Oh,
swap you.
it's in, Little man, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in
Up
there.
here?
Yeah. And then it's the very bottom. Yeah, it's in
Yes.
There you go.
And I have a couple questions that I just wrote out so that I might just ask you guys if that's okay. I know Tim really likes to do that, and that's
Yeah.
part of the
Yeah,
rubric, so.
that sounds good.
Or any of us.
That'll let us know what we are or are not prepared to answer. So, you find it?
Yes, sorry.
Okay. Okay, so we are talking about, or the abstracts we're presenting on today is The Fine Art of Small Talk by Deborah Fine and Powerful Communication Skills by Colleen McKenna. So to start off with, we wanted to just kind of ask you guys a few questions, kind of relating to these topics. So, how many of you didn't know anybody in class when you first started? Yay!
Yeah.
Oh,
me.
Great. Yeah, the next one.
Sure. Who of you have to use small talk at work or school every day?
Me.
Absolutely.
How many of you actually make small talk or introduce yourself to strangers when you're in line at a coffee shop?
Sometimes.
Right. It can be a little uncomfortable, right? Does anyone have a favorite way of introducing yourself or kind of initiating those kind of interactions? Any favorite icebreakers?
Just starting with your name, handshake,
Mhm.
keep it simple.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, why don't you guys practice that and maybe turn like behind you or to someone sitting next to you or whoever you don't know, and maybe just start by introducing yourself to kind of like break the ice a little in the room. Do that.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Brea.
Okay.
Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
Brea. Lovely weather ahead.
Lovely weather.
Great.
Cool.
Awesome. So now that we've kind of chatted about that a little, we are going to be teaching you guys about the value of effective small talk today, and all different types of communication styles. We want you to take away from this presentation today how to use small talk and how to be able to use things more effectively, like reading different body language and presenting yourself in a better way. Yeah. So I'm Bonnie.
Phil?
I'm back.
And let's get going.
Okay, so why is small talk important? Small talk is an unavoidable topic whether you're in line at your favorite coffee shop or grocery store or work or school. You can encounter it in all areas of your life. It can help you become a stronger leader, suppress your stress in unfamiliar social situations, and boost your confidence. People who can master the art of small talk make others feel warm, welcome, at ease, or valued. It's crucial in developing and enriching business relationships, beginning a romance, or making a friend.
So how do you do it? Here's some tricks. Like when you go in a room and you see a bunch of people, it's a lot easier to walk up to someone who's not talking to someone than someone in a group, right? Like I'm just gonna walk up and stand there and stare at them while they're talking. It's weird. So a trick I do is like ask you guys, like you introduce yourself, right? I'm Phil, yeah, and then you just repeat their name back to them. Try and say their name like as much as you can, because you gotta get it like in your head, because you're just gonna forget. And then yeah, if you do forget, don't be afraid to ask them again. And then conversation is kind of like a game of tennis here. hitting the ball back and forth with each other. So you're almost like setting up the person to talk back to you, right? So whenever if you're telling the story, you might as well end that with a question. Just set them up, and then hopefully they'll do the same for you. Nothing worse than talking to someone who just answers the question and then just stares at you when they're done. Like it just makes it flow a lot better. Yeah, and don't be afraid to, read like their cues. Like they're frowning at you, probably not too happy with you, probably not liking what you're saying. And read like how close they stand to you. If they're standing like really far back, then they probably don't really want to have anything to do with you. But if they're kind of in a good range, then it's all good. And yeah, always compliment them. Be polite. Common topics like, why are you there? Why are you there to talk to this person? Probably like an event or something. And then when you need to exit the conversation, I always find this the hardest part. I don't know why, but just say, yeah, I'm gonna go talk to this person. It's nice to meet you. See you around. Just like that, easy. And then these are the conversation killers. These are the people that are brutal to talk to. It starts with the FBI agent who just constantly asks you questions. And he doesn't even care about your answers really. He's just like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Just rapid fire questions. Not really fun to talk to someone like that. Don't be that guy. Then there's the braggart who just brags about himself the whole time. Like, I did this, I did that. And it's just, super annoying to listen to people like that. Because all they do is just talk about how great theirs is, and it just makes you feel like uncomfortable because you're like, yeah. Then there's the one-upper. This is one of my favorites. You'll tell a story, and then they always have a better story in the same similar kind of topic. Or it's like, well, I did that too, but then this happened, and it was way better than what you did. It's just like, cool, man. And then the monopolizer, these are fun too. They just talk the whole time, and they're bad at reading the body language, and they just go on forever. They don't stop, and they don't see like how the person's reacting to what they're saying. Like you could just be like looking at the ground, and they're still just talking to you. And these are the people that don't read body language.
I just have a quick question about that.
Yeah.
So obviously when you're in a conversation, you don't want to be any of those, but if someone else is being a braggart or a conversation killer, the FBI agent, like one of those categories, is there a way that you can combat it, or is it something that you just want to leave and move on?
I think it's all in the moment, like how you feel. But I think honestly if you're uncomfortable and you just want to get out, you can just drop the old, if you have the chance to, obviously.
Yeah, right.
It was nice to meet you, maybe I'll see you later or something.
Sure.
I would always just default to that as like your escape.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think that's a good place to use that sort of polite and graceful exit.
Yeah.
If the conversation isn't going the way you want it to, it's not necessarily up to you to teach someone else,
Yeah, exactly.
how to be a good conversationalist, but
Yeah.
knowing how to like operate in those situations and kind of remove yourself is probably a good, that's a good skill to have.
Yeah.
Cool.
The interrupter. These are the people that they're listening to you, I guess. Like they're in the conversation, but they're waiting. They just want to get their point in. So you're like barely even finished your sentence, and they're just already on top of you with their story. And it's just, those are fun too. The poor sport, which is, do you guys watch football?
Yes,
Bill
sir.
Belichick. Ultimate example of the poor sport. Just one word answers at the podium all the time. Just does not want to be there. Hates it. His face says it all. Just, like, those people aren't fun to talk to. The know-it-all. Not interested in anybody else's opinion, and they have it all figured out. And it's just, they probably would be the ones that frown at you most of the time. Because they're just, what are you talking about, man? I know more than you. Kind of thing. And then the advisor, they always give advice that you don't necessarily want. Like you just tell them a story and then it's just, oh, this is what you should do to fix it. Like I didn't ask you to give me advice. I just wanted you to hear the story. Sometimes there isn't an answer to every problem. It's just, people just want you to listen sometimes. As my wife likes to say. And yeah, then you guys, this is me, by the way. I don't know if you guys feel like this too.
Sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's why it's so good, it's so important to know how to end a conversation.
Yeah, exactly. You need that like exit
Mhm.
strategy.
So we've got a good little video to show you guys that's about making small talk in like a business environment or a workplace. They mentioned something called the like R technique. So think about that. We put it up on the screen there. So an anchor, revealing something about yourself, and then encouraging, asking a question like Phil was already talking about.
Do we have sound?
Oh, right.
Nice.
We didn't even practice that. There we go.
Nice.
Have you ever been in an elevator only to realize you have nothing to say when your boss steps in? Before you hyperventilate, even thinking about it, take into consideration these tips to become more conversational. Most opportunities spark from conversation. It's a free investment. You'll be recognized for taking the time to chat with that person. And a study from the University of Michigan showed that social interactions boost problem-solving skills by forcing you to read people's minds and take their perspective. First, look for someone approachable. Start with a smile and introduction. This puts everyone at ease. Communications expert Carol Fleming says to remember the acronym R. Anchor. Find something you have in common. This can be something you've experienced or something you're both experiencing in that moment. Reveal. Say something about yourself that relates to your anchor topic, creating trust and providing something for them to respond to. Encourage. This is your time to ask a question, prompting them to respond. Keep your questions open-ended. This allows for a more in-depth conversation. If you're stumped for a topic, stick to easy ones like their job, hobbies, and family. But always remember, stay away from controversial topics like politics. A compliment works well too, just be sure to transition the conversation afterward. Some people don't know how to handle them. Using the person's name in conversation will also yield good results. People appreciate the special attention. And remember to listen. People love to talk about themselves. Restate what you hear to show you are listening. Now is not the time to be shy. Get in that elevator, smile, and make small talk.
Okay, so there are three main categories when it comes to conversation. Passive is you're really shy. When someone asks you questions, you're not always willing to, one, give all the information or just not comfortable with giving all the information. You don't make a lot of eye contact. Your body, your posture might be a little bit slouched. You might be a little bit like reversed and just not interested. There is assertive conversation, which is kind of the middle point between passive and aggressive. There's not a lot of conflict. You have a lot of positive relationships in business and just everyday life. And you find a way to express your point of view without kind of offending anyone or kind of putting your views onto other people. There's aggressive conversation, which is where you are the only one that's right. Everyone should be listening to you. When it comes to aggressive communication, it can be physical or verbal. There is no fine line between the two. And it's a lot of putting people down, lots of sentences like, it's your fault, do what I do, and you know, you're really that higher self and you believe that no one else really has any other opinions. And then there's non-verbal conversation. So this is really what your body and everything about you is doing while you're having a conversation with another person. Most important would be eye contact. When you're making eye contact with someone, you're really creating a bubble around you, just saying that I agree with you. There's body posture. If you're having a conversation, you can see in this picture that person's very closed off by crossing their arms and crossing their legs, and the other person is very open and willing to receive the information. There's facial expression, if someone's frowning at you, or if someone's smiling at you, if you can see in someone's face when they're telling you news, they might have a sad expression if it's bad news. There's gestures, when you want someone to focus on something specifically, you can point to it. There's vocal tone, if you're happy, you might have a couple giggly words and, you know, you might have more pep in your step. If you're bored, you might be a little bit more monotone and just like, people can tell that you're not really either wanting to talk about the subject or be in the conversation. And then there's anger, you know, lots of emphasis on certain words, loud, yelling voice. There's timing in a conversation, so that could either be showing up on time, showing your interest by being on time. There is vocal tone, inflection, and volume. There's clothing, so if you're dressed appropriately, if it's a business meeting and you show up in your sweatpants and you kind of sit in the back of the room, like obviously you don't want to be there. Everyone's gonna know that if you are dressed appropriately and, you know, at the front of the class, or even just, you know, just like you look like you belong, everyone's gonna believe you belong. So the functions of nonverbal communication could be from across the room. You know, you wave at someone, you say bye to someone, you might wave. The one thing about nonverbal communication is it can't replace verbal. So if, you know, your friend gives you really exciting news, like, I just got a big promotion, and all you do is hug them and smile, they're not gonna get the same message as if you're like, oh my god, that's so great, and then you give them a hug. And you don't walk up to someone and go, hi, I would like to start a conversation. You know, make eye contact across the room, you might start with a smile, of course with the mask that might be a little bit harder, but you're going to make eye contact so you know that both parties are there before you just walk up. Same thing, you might notice that people are getting restless at the end of a conversation, and that's when you might end it. You're not gonna be like, okay, I'm done, and you walk away, right? And then this is just a fun video to kind of make you relate to a little bit more about what I just said about nonverbal.
Who doesn't watch Friends?
And you're the father, by the way, you go. Good job.
Joey went home. Oh, and look, there is still one box that I have to unpack. Oh my God, you almost gave me a heart attack. Oh.
My best friend and my sister, I cannot believe this.
Oh, sorry, but this is true. I
My best friend and my sister. I cannot believe this. Let's put aside the fact that you accidentally picked up my grandmother's ring and you accidentally proposed to Rachel. You will do this. I don't really know what that means. I'm sorry.
It was an awesome video. Illustrated it really well.
Okay.
Yeah, so active listening. What is active listening? What else was that? The notes on this?
We don't have notes on this, cause this
No, I
was-
moved them down.
I don't think I have any notes on this one.
one.
Oh, I know what you're saying here, I'll try.
Was it on there?
Yeah.
I'll get it.
This was Amanda's.
This is Amanda's, obviously.
No worries.
Okay, so yeah, what is active listening? Active listening is the technique of careful listening and observation of nonverbal cues. Why do we need active listening? Active listening is a good way to build strong relationships that demands effort and attention. It isn't something that comes naturally at all. It requires practice. Listening to others requires more than just being all ears. It involves attention from your whole body and plays a major role in our everyday life. So some examples of this would be demonstrating concern, paraphrasing to show your understanding, so that'll be the two-way part of it. Using nonverbal cues to show that understanding, such as nodding, eye contact, and leaning towards the speaker. So just be engaged, be present, and participate. Yeah.
So, yeah, to think about active listening is kind of can be broken down into 3 A's, so attention, attitude, and adjustment. So as Phil was kind of saying, active listening is about self-awareness, paying attention to how you are engaging, and then, you know, you can kind of read how other people are listening to you as well. So as far as attention goes, yeah, like paying attention to their speaker, like using those nonverbal cues we were just talking about, open body language, like eye contact, that kind of thing. That shows that you have intent and you're paying attention to that person. So attitude, have a positive attitude towards the speaker and their words. So again, like it was kind of mentioned before, you know, you can repeat things that somebody is saying, validating them, showing that you're listening by kind of mirroring what they're saying. And so adjustment, you know, adapting yourself where the speaker is going and having an open mind. So as the conversation is flowing, just kind of readjusting, keeping up with those other things, and just really letting that person know that you're paying attention and you're going along with what they're saying. Okay, so kind of tying in all of those things that we're talking about, there are different factors that can kind of change the way that your communication is interpreted. So a big one, it can be gender-based. So socialization can play a large role in how we do communicate and what the ultimate goal in our communication is. So while this is like a binary example, but talking about men and women in the workplace, when you're talking with colleagues, often men do seek more like admiration, acceptance, trust, that kind of thing, whereas women might be seeking more validation, respect, understanding, and reassurance from their communication. So based on those things that people are seeking, there could be misunderstandings or judgments based on these goals. Like for example, if a woman is maybe seeking help from a man, the man may misconstrue it and think that maybe she can't do her job when really she's just seeking his expertise or something like that. Yeah, and then when you think about how people are communicating from a gendered perspective, with that socialization aspect, often like when, you know, boys are growing up, they're taught these things like using their tough language and, you know, don't show your sensitive side and all that kind of stuff, whereas women are often taught growing up, you know, don't share too big of an opinion because it might be misconstrued as having too much of an attitude. Don't step on anyone's toes, those kinds of things. So all of that comes into play when you're communicating, which can make it difficult depending on the situation and how it's being perceived. And so in line with that, thinking about how things can be interpreted, there's how many of you, like when you're talking to someone or you're in a group, you know, maybe it is a work setting, maybe you're just meeting new people, you say something and you kind of like put your foot in your mouth a little bit and you say something that's like maybe inappropriate or, you know, offend someone or just was kind of like offside a little. So this is where like thoughtlessness, emotion, and just even force of habit for maybe something that we're used to in a different setting can cause you to say something that is inappropriate for the situation that you're in. So some keys to just consider when you're thinking about that and to avoid that. So just keep your conversations relevant and productive. So when you're engaging in a conversation with other people, make sure what you're contributing is on topic and that it is productive to the conversation. You're adding something to the conversation. And listen for evidence of your own stupid talk, as it's called. So, you know, kind of read the room, so to speak. If someone is giving you those nonverbal cues back, maybe they're, you know, surprised at something you said, or they look offended, or maybe they're pulling away, you can read that and sort of reassess what you're saying. Afterwards, and even during a long conversation, you can replay the conversation in your head if you feel like that's happened to you, and maybe think about ways to more clearly communicate what you were trying to add to the conversation. All right.
Okay, so we made a little quiz.
Guess only 2 of you are doing it though.
Oh yeah.
Just a couple questions, just to see if we kind of communicated our ideas over to you and hoping that you were following along. We can go on there. Okay, I guess you have to open up the.
Yeah, if you open it up, it'll come up with the pin.
Oh, now it's gonna make you log in.
Show it out.
So it happened. So just in the meantime, so I know your fourth members part was about active listening there, but I guess open-ended questions is a big part of that. What do you think are like some examples of like open-ended questions you'd use to ask as a conversation starter or builder?
I honestly, it's usually relative to what you're doing.
Cool, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if wherever you are, it's easy. Like I don't know, personally, I try to think of something that's relevant, really.
Mhm.
Like you're not just gonna say something completely random.
Yeah, and basically,
Yeah.
I mean, anything that's not just gonna offer the chance for a one-word answer, right? Like, I
Yeah,
could say,
totally.
like, how are you enjoying this class? Like, what do you think about it so far?
Yeah.
You can't just say, I mean, that gives you a chance to actually provide a little bit of feedback, or
Yeah.
how long have you been working at this job for? You know, like, you want to totally relate it to the situation that you're in, but think about questions that are going to elicit, you know, some sort of thoughtful response, not just a yes or no kind of question.
Yeah.
Cool.
And if you're struggling too, you just go with the old like, what are they wearing? Like they're wearing a Canucks jersey. Like, oh, did you see the game there tonight?
Yeah.
You know, just
Yeah.
use what you got, kind of thing. I guess.
Totally, keeping it relevant, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a
Awesome.
lot of people overthink small talk as well when they're in a conversation.
Sure.
And they think that they don't wanna use the cliches like, oh, lovely weather we're having, or hey, did you
Yeah.
watch the game last night? But I think that you should just do it,
Mhm.
because otherwise you're gonna be standing there and no one's gonna be talking.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, they're called icebreakers for a reason too, right? Like, you never know what kind of situation someone else is in. If you find that approachable person, like we talked about at the beginning, and you can strike up a conversation using one of those sort of little, how long have you worked here? Did you catch the game last night? That might open someone up. These are
For
things
sure.
that will make someone feel like welcomed and warm, and then that's when conversation can really get going.
Yeah, especially when you find things in common too.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And don't use the weather unless you absolutely have to.
I guess maybe that's like like an age demographic thing. Maybe some people like.
Maybe, yeah. Unless it's like a specific, like if it was like a hailstorm, okay, you know what I mean? Like if it's like a crazy thing, maybe it's like, oh yeah, it's sunny, yeah, totally.
Even Nick, or is it just me?
Okay, so I gotta type it in. 201.
Oh.
Nice.
Okay. Who's gonna win?
Need your help there.
I guess I gotta get candy or something.
Oh yeah, we need to do that.
Man.
Did say it.
And we
Friends
think it's
video.
like the quicker you answer, the more points you get.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm scared.
So the other move.
Oh, darn it.
You got it?
No, we both said 73.
Oh.
I swear I saw
I promise I was paying attention.
Layup.
Let's go.
Yeah, do a little quick.
We got it quick.
It like ticks down.
Oh, the music
That's
is
the
turned up.
pressure.
Oh man, we need a Jeopardy song on there.
Yeah.
Did you go quicker than I did here?
I think so. I think we get it.
So tough.
Another layup. Really tired of that one. Really cover. Fourth quarter. Oh boy.
Music.
We're already there, right?
These are like those-
Okay.
Yeah, so we're like this. Man, it's like 90s and 10s.
I don't know. I don't think so. Oh, it's getting close.
Last
Oh,
question.
no.
Last one.
All the marbles.
Oh, you might have beat me, man.
Alright.
No one.
There's no one. No, no. GG. Ah.
Lava Cahoo.
Love a good cave. Nice. That's well
We're gonna
made.
do some like little candy prizes for the winner. Or like top three.
Yeah,
people.
top three.
We don't have that for you.
Practice.
sorry. So yeah, that brings us to the end of our presentation. Side note, we do have a few more slides depending on how things are going for time, but I feel like our active listening.
That's the
skills-
bones of it.
Well, we'll kind of flesh out those other ones a little more from a
Yeah.
novice. We were literally just like reading off, cause.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get questions at the end as well.
Yeah, do you guys have any more questions?
Yeah, questions from the audience.
You mentioned gender having something to do with how people communicate with each other. Do you guys feel that culture and culture barriers play a role in communication, and what are ways that you can work around it?
Oh, yeah. Do you want, I can take that? Yeah, I mean, definitely, I think, like, all of those things come into play. I mean, that's why I like kind of touching on, like, the way you're socialized, right? So, I mean, whether that's gender, whether that's, yeah, like, religion, race, socioeconomic status, like, all those things are gonna come into play. So, I mean, it can be hard to communicate to people if you're not relating to them, right? And I mean, it can kind of get even deeper when, you know, some gestures or phrases might be offensive to someone that's totally normal to another person. So, I mean, in some situations, things happen just by accident, right? But I mean, if you're trying to convey a message, I think it's just, you know, using all those things like your tone, make sure that's polite, you know, you're reading the room. If someone does seem offended by something, you can always ask, like, oh, I'm sorry, did that offend you? Or, you know, that's why it's so important to be paying attention to how someone is receiving what you're saying, because you absolutely might, you know, have something misunderstood based on any of those factors.
Yeah, just be more open and forgiving. Don't let your guard down a bit if someone's clearly like ESL, like.
Yeah, and it's the same, yeah, like it doesn't just go for you offending someone else, like if you find yourself
Yeah.
offended by someone because something was said, or maybe you're misreading somebody too, right, like keep all that in mind. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to, you know, be like, hey, I know you didn't mean to, but that did kind of offend me, you know, just kind of go on that, but be polite about it. You don't have to be like, hey, that was rude.
Yes.
Just tell someone when they've done wrong, because you're never gonna learn otherwise.
yeah, absolutely.
Wicked.
One more question. This one's kind of a tough one. What are the two biggest reasons to small talk? One for yourself in conversation and in business, and then two for the person that you are talking with.
Oh, I guess for both parties. I mean, I think
Yeah.
the biggest takeaway just kind of in general is that it really does help you to build relationships.
Totally.
I think for the person that you're talking to, like the receiver, it can help them feel welcomed by you, at ease, that kind of thing, right? Like it can really break the ice, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
For yourself, it can help you to learn how to be, you know, confident in those uncomfortable situations. The more you practice this kind of thing, the easier it does get.
Totally.
And it teaches you those skills that are so important to being a good leader, and you know, advancing in your workplace.
It's a give and take, right? Both of you are getting something out of the conversation, no matter how far it goes or how little it goes. You could literally walk up to someone, ask them how their day is going, and then it does end. You know, conversation always doesn't go on and on and on and on.
For sure.
Sometimes you don't click with someone, but you both learn from that situation, no matter what. And I think that just putting yourself out there and not being afraid is very important
Yeah,
as well.
because it builds your confidence every time, and
Yeah.
then you never know, right? Like when you have an interaction with maybe someone at work, that's going to, you know, make a good connection for your future, but you're really a confident speaker because of all those interactions that you've had.
Yeah, it's also like a third person kind of appearance thing. Like if you're in a group full of people and you see the one guy in the corner on his phone, you're just like, it's not good. It doesn't look good, right?
Sure.
So like if you're gonna be that guy, just don't do it in the middle. Go outside or something.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, compliments?
I think we're good for questions.
That's
Do we
another
give our
way to
do
say
we
it.
give our feedback to the
Yeah.
videos?
We're ready for the
We do,
compliments.
right?
Yeah, I think we do
Okay.
it on video. I don't know if it's a separate video, but
Let's do it on one.
just one, yeah. So your presentation was 34 minutes,
Okay.
so that's perfect for giving like 5 minutes for.
We do have 2 more extra slides that we have just like tucked away that we can add.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it gives you some time to like ask.
Yeah.
questions
Yeah, I have
and
plans
stuff like
to
that.
go into more detail on some things too.
Mhm.
Especially you'll probably talk a little bit quicker during your presentation too.
Hoping
Yeah.
not.
Generally. Sorry.
Yeah.
About slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
How did you guys find the speed?
Good.
It was.
I thought it was easy to follow. No?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I
was
thought you
I was
guys.
talking a little too fast.
How was the mask? Was it mumbly? Like obviously like the mask is a little bit mumbly. Were we projecting enough?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could understand everything. Like it was
Okay.
pretty good.
Yeah. Pretty loud and clear.
That's good.
Yeah, you guys did really, really well, I thought. you did a really good job, not just reading off the slides, like you all, it seemed, knew what you were talking about and you expanded on all of the points a lot, which was really great. I really liked the icebreaker at the beginning that you guys did. I thought that was really fun and kind of just, breaks the ice and gets the presentation going. Your first video I thought was really great too. It was really good length and it wasn't like an old dated video. It seemed pretty up to date and it wasn't super long or drag on. I liked when you guys added your little jokes and like anecdotes and made us laugh a bit. I think Phil, you were really good at that too. You seem really confident up there. I love the what's that?
It's all for sure.
Well, you fooled us. I love the Friends video. I thought that was really good that you guys added that, and it was a good space in between the two videos, so it didn't seem like you were just adding a bunch in just to fill up time. I thought that was really good. And then again, it wasn't too long either. And it was really easy to get in and out of all the videos. Like you guys had it all set up. You didn't have to spend a lot of time finding them or logging into any sites or anything like that. They just loaded right away. And then I liked how you guys all just sort of joined in when you're answering the questions. It wasn't just sort of one person answering them all and like monopolizing it. You guys all had some really good responses.
They were good questions, so hopefully we get some.
Yeah. I'm sure Tim will have quite a few.
Yeah, he will.
Yeah. That's my pros for you guys.
Yeah, and you actually gave me an idea, like when you asked me about the profiles or whatever, like what do you do to get away? I'm like, that's perfect, we need to add that in there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
And then feedback for improvement.
Do you guys have any more pros to add? That's sort of what I wrote down.
I thought it was, you guys were great.
Yeah, you guys were really
worked
great.
really well together, really well spoken. I was very impressed. It was awesome.
Oh, I have another question.
Yes.
So, should we avoid, like I kind of was just standing here, it would be better if I like remove myself and just one person?
Didn't seem distracting at all. It's
Okay.
totally up to
Yeah.
whatever
I
was
you feel
wondering about the
comfortable
like,
with, I
standing
feel.
here.
It's probably nice to have all three of you up there. You can kind of support each other just like you did with the question and answers too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great.
Sweet.
So for constructive feedback, I guess just like more eye contact. You did really well with it, but like as you get more comfortable with your slides, just trying to get more eye contact in the audience. I did say slow down a little bit if you can. I know I always talk super fast, especially when I'm nervous.
Yeah.
But if you can, just slow down a little. It just makes you seem a little more confident up there. And yeah, just rehearsing it a few more times. Obviously, Amanda's slides were so last minute, and the whole thing has been really but you guys pulled it together really well.
Yeah, I'm impressed with considering.
Yeah, like if I didn't know that she like dropped out, I would have never guessed that you
Yeah.
guys had to do
Well,
that in the last
I
minute.
literally only started working on my stuff on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then we met yesterday. That's pretty
Nice.
much
Yeah, and like
the
I
only
would have
time
never
we
guessed
worked
that. Yeah.
I was with it.
So, but yeah, we'll be.
I think the topic helps too. If it was a hard topic, it would be.
Yeah.
And then just as far as engagement, maybe just like being a little bit more engagement, just asking questions after a couple of slides.
Yeah.
Like, does anybody have any questions? Or just throwing some little questions in there, or things like that. And then maybe give a little teaser of Kahoot at the beginning so people kind of know that you're going to be quizzing them and saying like, here's some prizes at the end,
Mhm.
so pay attention, or throwing something like that in there.
It's also
Yeah.
But
I'll add that
yeah, it
in
was
my
all really
little
great. That's all I
intro.
really have for.
Nick?
The only thing I was wondering about was the timing that we did the activity, how it was right off the bat. And then I wasn't really sure like how we should be interacting, like how long we should be talking for kind of thing. I think maybe, I don't know, I'd like to get your guys' opinion on this too. If you move it to
Yeah.
after you talk about like tips to engaging with people and then give people a chance to practice the tips rather than going about it themselves, like
Yeah.
without any.
I was gonna mention that too.
Okay.
When I took this class, Tim was really big on introducing yourselves like right
That's
away
what I was gonna
and the
say, yeah.
topic,
Okay.
which you guys I think did after that. And then I think like what Nick is saying, if you guys just do like a first like tiny little module and then go into a group activity, I think that could flow a little better. If you want to keep it the same, of course, it's your presentation.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree that maybe that it would flow
Yeah.
just a little
I
bit
think like
better.
the original thinking there was like to kind of make it like a grabbing people's
Yeah.
attention kind of thing. But if
Right.
it felt like that, then that
Like,
you
I
say, makes a
honestly
lot of
feel like it
sense.
could be either. Like, I liked it at the beginning as an icebreaker. I think that's totally fine. But
What if we
either
split
or.
them?
But I would definitely say,
Yeah.
like, introduce yourselves first.
Yes,
Like, if we
right
do
away.
like the introduction.
actually- We're gonna do territorial knowledge too.
I had a class, unless he mentioned it, but in 210 we had a class with Tim and somebody did a territorial acknowledgement. Obviously, it's fantastic, but then he asked them right away, "Why are you doing this?" And then they didn't have an answer for him,
You
so just
roasted
he
them.
No.
roasted them. So just yeah. If
So
you
just
How do
really
you
plan
know
it-
the answer? Just for respect.
I
Yeah,
was-
right, yeah, I guess
I was
so.
not planning on putting one in just because I feel like we're like a lot of classes already do them and it's like literally
Mhm.
up on the website and it's kind of all like.
And then the rest of
Yeah.
us did include one, and we did not get any.
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
people.
I
I
will-
think it just depends on
It
the
depends on the
prof,
prof.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because one of our profs is like you have to do it every time.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would ask Tim. I
Okay.
think that's a question for
Pass,
Tim.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that we should do like how we do like a couple of questions like who does this, who does that, and then should we do like why small talk and then the butterflies and then do the turnaround, or should we put them all together after these two slides?
What after the social butterflies?
The interactive group activity. Because that kind of is like the,
Mhm.
Like, just-
why do you do
like-
it, here are some tips or tricks to do it, like turn to the person next to you.
Oh, I see what you're saying, like a couple of the questions at the beginning that are more general and then do those ones after.
I mean, yeah, should we split it or should we keep it all together?
So sorry, you're saying do the,
Cause what we do, like, we do, this is like for our questions.
yeah,
And then Bonnie does the introduction here, like this is what we're talking about, this is like our intro, that's what she put, like, just so you guys know, like, we're gonna do a quiz after this.
yeah.
But then we had like the group activity here, and then we did the introduction, and then we brought it into this. So should we do after why small talk, those little like, icebreaker questions and group activity?
I think they're saying like after we kind of talked about the like do's and don'ts a little bit.
Yeah.
more. Like after.
I think after how do social butterflies do it?
Okay.
So you give them like some examples of how to, so, and then they'll be able to run with it for a little longer too,
Yeah.
right? 'Cause then you can put
That's
some of
true,
that
that's
in
a good point, there
practice.
might be like
Yeah.
more to kind of like warmed up, cause we've been talking a little.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just do that, let's like
Yeah.
move it then.
Yeah. That'll also break up Phil's time a little bit.
Yeah.
because he's
Yeah.
got-
That's a
true.
great
Cause then
idea.
that's kinda like, those first two slides really are still like a bit of an introduction to the topic anyways. And then, yeah,
Cause then we get right into it.
Mhm.
sounds good. We
Um,
kinda end though, I feel like it'll need to be bridged like Phil, when you start those like the don'ts, the conversation killers, cause like the end of that slide, the how do social butterflies do it, that's where it kinda says like talking about like exiting a conversation. And then it kinda leads into like those like why you might.
Yeah, that's what I was
do.
thinking. We would just completely remove that, and then it'll either be.
So I think the questions just need to make sense for where they are, so it doesn't feel, I think that would be fine there though, cause then it's
Mhm.
just like a conversation about that, and then you can kinda get into like, this is, yeah, no, I think that's good.
So since you thought of it, like, because I got through 4 of them, and you kind of like broke it up with like, how do you get away from those? So should I start with that, or should I end with it?
That's a good question.
I think ending with it would probably be the best.
Yeah.
So people like know what they're getting away from first. Right?
Yeah, I would- I
Identify
would
the problem
agree.
and then how to solve it.
Right. Okay.
And then if Tim asks you halfway through, then you're like, I'm actually gonna get to that in a minute, or you can just tell him right then and there.
Right.
So,
Cool.
one other thing is, I think, if I remember correctly, we had to do like a small introduction on the author.
Oh.
I don't know if you mentioned that or something, or,
I don't think that's in
Oh.
like the,
I mean, we could.
I don't think that's in the syllabus.
Okay.
I'll double check though.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah.
write it down. So.
Say double check.
that, yeah, cause that was in my presentation notes from when,
Okay,
I
that's
did
good to
this,
know, I'll
but-
double, I don't remember reading that, he certainly hasn't mentioned it.
okay.
But good to just double check, cause I don't wanna be caught off guard with that.
That also could have been for the second abstract maybe, but yeah, worth a
Well, maybe-
check.
Maybe for the second one, yeah,
Um,
we'll double check.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely, introduce yourselves right off the bat and,
Okay.
yeah. Cool.
Like it.
The active listening is kind of dry. Like I feel like some of it's kind of just pretty like, well, what can you do really? So then,
Well, I don't know, we'll look at that.
Active
We'll,
listening.
we'll find a way to make that a little bit better too, because we've never learned it, like. right.
We just had a full class on active listening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
It's important.
It is kind of dry, like body language and stuff, and yeah, you got it up there. Like it is important stuff.
And it, like, it ties back into all the other stuff that's already been
Mhm.
said, so I think it's, you can kinda like make it a little bit more relevant and interactive, but, yeah. That's good.
And it didn't seem bad, even though it was thrown together.
Yeah, it seemed pretty
Like,
complete.
your whole presentation seemed pretty good.
One thing you could add in for active listening is people like obviously really are comfortable and they like talking about themselves. So as a listener, a big part of that is asking questions too. And like I'm no expert on that by any means, but certainly adding that in and sort of that's why I asked about those open-ended questions. If you can get people to talk about themselves, they're going to open up, and that is part of listening too. Is
like cater to them kind of thing.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was actually, I mean, I think that was in amongst all the things that we read, I just didn't put it in there, but yeah, like there's a point that like people do like talking about
Mhm.
themselves, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kinda get that, yeah,
Cool.
that's good. And then, alright. I guess I need to log out of my Google.
I'll stop this now.
Sounds good.
Good.